The transport ship shook hard as it entered the docking bay of Outpost 17. Dohyun grabbed the metal bar above his head and held tight. He was the only passenger on this small vessel. The pilot, a four-armed creature with gray skin, had not spoken a single word to him during the 6-hour journey. That was fine. Dohyun did not need conversation. The ship landed with a loud thud. The back door opened slowly, and bright white light flooded inside. Dohyun picked up his small bag and walked down the ramp. His boots touched the metal floor of the station, and he stopped for a moment to look around. Outpost 17 was massive. The ceiling was so high that Dohyun could barely see it. Hundreds of aliens walked in every direction. Some were tall and thin. Some were short and wide. Some had fur. Some had scales. Some had neither. Dohyun had studied many species during his training on Earth, but seeing them in person was different. They moved with purpose. They belonged here. He did not. Not yet. A loud voice came from speakers on the wall. All new personnel, report to Orientation Hall 7 immediately. Dohyun followed the signs on the walls. The hallways were crowded, and many aliens looked at him as he passed. Their eyes stayed on him longer than normal. He knew why. Humans were rare out here. The Galactic Alliance had only accepted Earth as a member world 3 years ago. Most aliens had never seen a human before. He found Orientation Hall 7 after 10 minutes of walking. The room was large, with seats arranged in rows facing a raised platform. About 30 other new recruits were already sitting. Dohyun scanned the room and found an empty seat in the back corner. He sat down and placed his bag under his chair. The other recruits were talking to each other. Dohyun heard pieces of their conversations. They spoke about their home worlds, their training, their hopes for this assignment. He did not join them. He simply watched and listened. The door at the front of the room opened, and everyone went quiet. A female alien walked onto the platform. She was tall, almost 2 meters, with smooth blue skin and large silver eyes. Her uniform was black with gold marks on the shoulders. She moved with confidence and power. Every step she took made a sound that echoed through the silent room. "I am Commander Nari," she said. Her voice was cold and sharp. "I am in charge of all security operations on this station. You are here because the Alliance believes you can be useful. I am not so sure." She looked at the recruits one by one. Her silver eyes stopped on each face for just a second before moving to the next. When her eyes reached Dohyun, they stopped longer. "Stand up," she said. Dohyun stood. Every head in the room turned to look at him. Commander Nari walked down from the platform. She moved between the rows of seats until she was standing right in front of him. She was much taller than him. She looked down at his face like she was studying an insect. "You are the human," she said. It was not a question. "Yes, Commander. I have read your file. Earth military. 5 years. Survival training. Combat training. But no actual combat experience." She tilted her head to one side. "Tell me, human, why are you here?" "I was selected for the Alliance exchange program, Commander." "That is not what I asked." Her silver eyes narrowed. "I asked why you are here. On my station. In my program." Dohyun met her gaze. He did not look away. "I want to learn, Commander." A small smile appeared on Commander Nari's blue lips. It was not a kind smile. "Learn," she repeated. She turned to face the other recruits. "The human wants to learn." Some of the aliens laughed. It was a nervous, uncomfortable laugh, but they laughed anyway. Commander Nari turned back to Dohyun. "Humans are soft," she said loudly so everyone could hear. "Your species is young. You have only been in space for what? 200 years? The Velkari, my people, have sailed between stars for 15,000 years. We have seen species like yours come and go. You rise fast, burn bright, and then you disappear. That is the way of the galaxy." Dohyun said nothing. "I have seen the reports about your kind," Commander Nari continued. "You are emotional. Impulsive. You make decisions based on feelings instead of logic. You are physically weak compared to most Alliance species. You cannot see in the dark. You cannot smell danger. You cannot hear frequencies outside your limited range. In every way that matters, you are inferior. The room was completely silent. No one was laughing now. Commander Nari leaned closer to Dohyun. Her face was only centimeters from his. So, I will ask you again, human. Why are you here? What could you possibly offer to this station? What could you possibly offer to the Alliance? Dohyun looked into her silver eyes. He could see his own reflection in them. He looked small. He looked weak. Maybe she was right. Maybe humans were inferior, but something inside him refused to accept that. I am here to serve, Commander, he said quietly. That is all. Commander Nari stared at him for a long moment. Then she stepped back and laughed. It was a cold, harsh sound. To serve, she said. How noble. How very human. She walked back to the platform and faced all the recruits again. Let this be a lesson to all of you. The Alliance accepts many species, but not all species are equal. Some of you will succeed here, some of you will fail. And some of you, she looked directly at Dohyun, some of you should not have come at all. The orientation continued for another 2 hours. Commander Nari explained the rules of the station, the schedule for training, and the expectations for all recruits. Dohyun listened carefully and remembered everything, but he could feel the eyes of the other recruits on him throughout the session. They had seen him be humiliated. They had heard the commander call humans weak and inferior. Now they looked at him differently. When the orientation ended, the recruits filed out of the room. A few of them walked past Dohyun without looking at him. Others looked at him with pity. One alien, a short creature with green scales, actually laughed at him as he passed. Dohyun picked up his bag and walked to his assigned quarters. The room was small, with a bed, a desk, and a tiny window that looked out into the blackness of space. He put his bag on the bed and sat down in the chair. He thought about Commander Nari's words. Soft, weak, inferior. He had heard similar things before, during his training on Earth. The instructors had warned all the human candidates that aliens would underestimate them. They had said it was both a challenge and an advantage. Let them think you are weak, his instructor had said. Let them believe they are superior. And when the time comes, show them the truth. Dohyun looked out the window at the stars. He did not know if he would ever get that chance. But he knew one thing for certain. He would not give up. He would not run away. He would prove that humans belonged here, even if it took years, even if it took his entire life. A soft beep came from the speaker on his wall. Attention all recruits. Training begins at 0600 hours tomorrow. Get rest. You will need it. Dohyun lay down on his bed and closed his eyes. Tomorrow would be hard. Every day on this station would be hard. But he was ready. Outside his window, the stars continued to shine. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of the known galaxy, something was moving. Something ancient. Something hungry. Something that had not visited this region of space in over 300 years. The Kravos were coming. And no one on Outpost 17 had any idea. 3 weeks passed on Outpost 17. Dohyun trained every day. He woke up before everyone else, and went to sleep after everyone else. He pushed his body harder than any other recruit, and slowly, very slowly, the other aliens began to notice. The training was brutal. Commander Nari made sure of that. Every morning, the recruits ran through obstacle courses designed for species much stronger and faster than humans. Every afternoon, they practiced combat techniques with weapons that felt strange in Dohyun's hands. Every evening, they studied tactics and strategy until their minds were exhausted. Most recruits complained. Some quit. But Dohyun never said a word. He just kept going. One day, during a hand-to-hand combat exercise, Dohyun was paired with a Velkari recruit named Taewoo. Taewoo was tall like all Velkari, with the same blue skin and silver eyes as Commander Nari. He looked at Dohyun with open disrespect. Try not to break too easily, human, Taewoo said. The fight began. Taewoo moved fast. His arms and legs were longer than Dohyun's, and he used his reach to keep the human at a distance. Every time Dohyun tried to get close, Taewoo pushed him back, but Dohyun did not get frustrated. He watched. He learned. He noticed that Taewoo always shifted his weight to his left foot before attacking. He noticed that Taewoo dropped his guard for just a fraction of a second after each punch. On the 12th exchange, Dohyun made his move. When Taewoo shifted his weight, Dohyun ducked low and moved to the right. Taewoo's punch missed completely. Before the Valkyrie could recover, Dohyun grabbed his arm and used his own momentum against him. Taewoo flew through the air and landed hard on the training mat. The room went silent. Taewoo lay on his back, staring at the ceiling in shock. Dohyun stood over him, breathing hard but steady. Commander Nari, who had been watching from the side of the room, walked over. She looked at Taewoo on the ground, then at Dohyun, standing above him. Her silver eyes showed no emotion. "Lucky," she said. Then she walked away. But Dohyun knew it was not luck, and deep down, Commander Nari knew it too. That night, something strange happened. Dohyun was in the common area, eating his evening meal alone as usual, when the lights flickered. It was just for a second, but everyone in the room noticed. Then the alarms began. Red lights flashed on the walls. A loud siren filled the air. The voice from the speakers spoke in a language Dohyun did not understand at first. Then it repeated in standard galactic, "Alert. Unknown vessels detected at outer perimeter. All security personnel report to stations." This is not a drill. The common area erupted into chaos. Aliens jumped from their seats and ran in different directions. Some were shouting. Some were crying. Dohyun stayed in his seat and finished his meal. Panic would not help anyone. He made his way to the security control room. As a trainee, he was not supposed to be there. But no one stopped him. Everyone was too busy staring at the large screen on the wall. The screen showed a map of the space around Outpost 17. At the edge of the map, there were red dots. 5 of them. They were moving slowly toward the station. Commander Nari stood in the center of the room. Her blue face was pale. Her silver eyes were wide. Dohyun had never seen her look afraid before. "What are they?" someone asked. "Kravos," Commander Nari said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. The word spread through the room like fire. Kravos. 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 Aliens who had been calm a moment ago were now trembling. Some fell to their knees. Some began to pray to gods Dohyun did not know. Dohyun did not understand. He had never heard of the Kravos before. They were not in any of the training materials he had studied. He moved closer to a young Valkyrie officer named Jiwoo. She was standing near the wall, her hands shaking. "What are Kravos?" Dohyun asked quietly. Jiwoo looked at him with terror in her eyes. "You do not know? How can you not know? Humans are new to the Alliance. Tell me." Jiwoo took a deep breath. "The Kravos are the oldest predators in the galaxy. They are hunters. They travel from system to system, feeding on whatever they find. No weapon can stop them. No defense can hold them. When the Kravos come, there is only one option. Run." "Surely someone has fought them before," Dohyun said. "Many have tried. All have failed." Jiwoo's voice cracked. 300 years ago, the Kravos attacked the Valkyrie homeworld. We had the most advanced military in the galaxy. We had billions of soldiers. We fought for 100 days. She paused. We lost 40% of our population. 40%. And then, we surrendered. We paid them tribute for the next 50 years, just to make them leave. Dohyun felt a cold feeling in his stomach. What happened after 50 years? They got bored. They moved on to other regions of space. We thought. We hoped. They would never come back. Jiwoo looked at the red dots on the screen. We were wrong. Commander Nari's voice cut through the room. All non-essential personnel will evacuate immediately. Security teams will establish defensive positions at all entry points. This is a delay action only. Our goal is to give the evacuation ships time to escape. Delay action? An officer asked. "Commander, we cannot fight the Kravos." It is impossible. I know, Commander Nari said. Her voice was heavy with despair. But we have to try. We have to give our people a chance. The next few hours were chaos. Evacuation ships launched from the station one after another. Families ran through the hallways carrying whatever they could. Children cried. Adults cried too. The fear was everywhere, thick in the air like smoke. Dohyun helped where he could. He carried bags for people who were too weak to carry them. He guided lost children to their parents. He stayed calm when everyone around him was falling apart. At one point, he passed Commander Nari in a hallway. She was directing traffic, pointing aliens toward the evacuation bays. When she saw Dohyun, she paused. You should be on one of those ships, human, she said. Trainees are non-essential personnel. I can help, Dohyun said. You cannot help. No one can help. This station is already dead. We just do not know it yet. Commander Nari looked at him with something that might have been pity. Go. Save yourself. Your species is young. You have not yet learned that some battles cannot be won. Dohyun looked at her. He thought about her words during orientation. Soft. Weak. Inferior. He thought about how she had laughed at him in front of everyone. But he did not feel anger. He felt something else. Something deeper. Permission to stay, Commander, he said. Commander Nari stared at him. Why? Why would you want to die here? On a station that is not even your own? Among people who have never shown you kindness? Dohyun did not have a good answer. He just knew that leaving felt wrong. Running felt wrong. Everything inside him was telling him to stay. Because someone has to, he said. Commander Nari was silent for a long moment. Then she shook her head and walked away. She did not give him permission to stay, but she did not order him to leave either. Dohyun made his way to the main airlock. This was where the Kravos would enter. This was where the final stand would happen. A small group of security officers were already there, setting up barriers and checking their weapons. They looked terrified. Dohyun found a spot against the wall and sat down. He closed his eyes and thought about Earth. He thought about his family. He thought about the blue sky and the green trees and the smell of rain on warm pavement. He might never see any of those things again, but that was okay. He had made his choice. And he would not run. Outside the station, the 5 red dots continued their approach. The Kravos were getting closer, and in just a few hours, everything would change. The airlock was cold. Dohyun could see his breath in the air. The station's heating system had been damaged during the evacuation, and no one had bothered to fix it. There were more important things to worry about. 12 security officers stood in front of the main entrance. They had built barriers from metal tables and storage containers. Their weapons were pointed at the door. But their hands were shaking. Their eyes kept moving to the exit behind them, like they were thinking about running. Commander Nari stood at the front of the group. She had changed into combat armor. It was black and covered her entire body except for her face. In her hands, she held a plasma rifle, one of the most powerful weapons in the Alliance military. But even that might not be enough. Sensors show the Kravos ships have attached to the station, an officer announced. His voice was high and thin. They will breach in approximately 10 minutes. 10 minutes. That was all the time they had left. Commander Nari turned to face her officers. I will not lie to you, she said. Most of us will die here today. The Kravos are faster than us, stronger than us, more brutal than us. We cannot win. No one spoke. The silence was heavy. But we can give the evacuation ships more time, Commander Nari continued. Every minute we hold this position is another minute for our families to get away. Every second we fight is another second of life for someone we love. That is why we are here. That is why we stay. She raised her rifle. For the Alliance. For our people. We stand. We stand, the officers repeated. But their voices were weak. Uncertain. Dohyun was not standing with the group. He was sitting against the wall, about 20 meters behind them. He had no weapon. He had no armor. He was just a trainee. He should not even be here, but he was. He watched Commander Nari and her officers. He watched the door. He waited. 5 minutes passed, then 3, then 1. The airlock door began to glow. The metal turned red, then orange, then white. The Kravos were cutting through from the other side. The heat was so intense that everyone had to step back, and then the door exploded inward. Smoke and fire filled the room. Through the chaos, Dohyun saw shapes moving. Dark shapes. Fast shapes. The Kravos had arrived. The first thing Dohyun noticed was their size. The Kravos were huge. Each one was at least 3 meters tall, with long limbs and sharp claws. Their bodies were covered in black scales that seemed to absorb light. Their eyes glowed red, like burning coals in the darkness. The second thing Dohyun noticed was their smell. It was the smell of death, of blood, of every nightmare he had ever had as a child. It filled his nose and made him want to vomit. The third thing he noticed was their sound. The Kravos did not roar or scream. They clicked. It was a soft, steady clicking, like insects communicating in the dark. But somehow that was worse than any roar. It was calm, patient, hungry. Commander Nari opened fire. Her plasma rifle sent bright blue bolts into the smoke. Other officers followed. The room filled with the sound of weapons and the flash of energy. But it was not enough. The Kravos moved through the gunfire like it was rain. The plasma bolts hit their scales and bounced off. They did not slow down. They did not stop. They just kept coming. The first officer died in seconds. A Kravos grabbed him with one claw and tore him apart. Blood sprayed across the floor. The second officer tried to run, but a Kravos caught him before he took 3 steps. His scream was cut short. Commander Nari kept firing. Her face was twisted with fear and rage. "Fall back," she shouted. "Fall back to secondary positions." But there was nowhere to fall back to. The Kravos were everywhere now. They had surrounded the small group of defenders. One by one, the officers fell. Their weapons were useless. Their training was useless. Everything was useless against these monsters. Dohyun watched from his position against the wall. His heart was pounding. His hands were trembling. Every instinct in his body was screaming at him to run, to hide, to do anything, except stay in this room with these creatures. But he did not run. He stood up. The movement caught the attention of the nearest Kravos. It turned its massive head and looked at him. Its red eyes glowed brighter. It clicked its jaws together and began walking toward him. Commander Nari saw what was happening. "Human! What are you doing? Get out of here!" Dohyun did not answer. He walked forward, toward the Kravos, toward the destroyed airlock, toward the center of the room where the fighting was happening. The Kravos that had been approaching him stopped. It tilted its head to one side, like a dog that had heard a strange sound. Then it clicked again, louder this time. Other Kravos began to notice. One by one, they stopped their attacks and turned to look at the small human walking through the chaos. The clicking grew louder. It filled the entire room. Commander Nari lowered her weapon. She was bleeding from a wound on her arm, but she did not seem to notice. She was staring at Dohyun with confusion on her face. "What is happening?" she whispered. Dohyun kept walking. He passed the barriers. He passed the bodies of the fallen officers. He walked until he was standing in the open space between the defenders and the Kravos. Then he stopped. The largest Kravos, the one that seemed to be the leader, approached him. It was even bigger than the others. Its scales were darker. Its claws were longer. Its red eyes burned with ancient intelligence. It stopped just 2 meters from Dohyun and looked down at him. Dohyun looked up. For a long moment, nothing happened. The clicking had stopped. The room was completely silent except for the sound of breathing and the crackle of small fires. Then the Kravos leader did something that no one expected. It lowered its head and breathed in deeply through slits on the side of its face. It was smelling him. studying him, and then it made a sound. It was not a click. It was something else, something that sounded almost like a word. Dohyun could not understand it, but he could feel its meaning somehow. It was a name, a designation, a warning. The Kravos leader stepped back. Its red eyes were no longer glowing with hunger. They were glowing with something else, something that looked almost like fear. It turned to the other Kravos and made the sound again, louder this time. The other creatures responded immediately. They began moving back toward the destroyed airlock. They were retreating. Commander Nari watched in disbelief. "That is impossible," she said. "The Kravos do not retreat. They have never retreated. Not in 10,000 years of recorded history. But they were retreating now." One by one, the massive creatures disappeared through the hole they had cut in the door. The clicking faded. The smell of death began to lift. Within minutes, they were gone. Dohyun stood alone in the center of the room. He had not moved. He had not spoken. He had done nothing except walk forward and stand still. Behind him, the survivors were slowly getting to their feet. They were injured and scared and confused. They did not understand what had just happened. Neither did Dohyun. Commander Nari approached him. Her silver eyes searched his face for answers. "Human," she said. "What did you do? What are you?" Dohyun met her gaze. He wished he had an answer. He wished he understood why the Kravos had looked at him with fear instead of hunger. He wished he knew what that strange word meant, but he did not know. All he knew was that they were still alive. Against all odds, against all logic, against everything the galaxy believed about the Kravos, they had survived. "I do not know," he said honestly. "I just stood there." Commander Nari stared at him for a long time. Then she turned and walked away without another word. Outside the station, the Kravos ships were detaching. They were leaving. And deep in the darkness of space, the massive creatures were clicking to each other in their ancient language. They were sharing memories, warnings, stories passed down through generations. Stories about a small blue planet called Earth. Stories about creatures that looked weak but fought like demons. Stories about a war that happened 300 years ago, before humans had even reached the stars. The Kravos remembered. And now, they had been reminded. The hours after the Kravos retreated were filled with silence and confusion. Medical teams treated the wounded. Engineers began repairing the destroyed airlock. Communication officers sent messages to the evacuation ships, telling them it was safe to return. But no one could explain what had happened. No one except, perhaps, the one person who might have the answers. Dohyun sat in a small room near the medical bay. He had been examined by doctors who found nothing unusual about him. His blood was normal. His body was normal. He was just an ordinary human in every way they could measure. But ordinary humans did not make the Kravos retreat. Commander Nari entered the room without knocking. She was no longer wearing her combat armor. Her arm was wrapped in white bandages. Her silver eyes looked tired, but there was something else in them now. Curiosity. And maybe a little fear. "The Alliance High Command wants answers," she said. "They have been watching this station since the Kravos were first detected. They saw everything on the security recordings." Dohyun nodded slowly. "I understand." "No, I do not think you do." Commander Nari sat down in the chair across from him. "The Kravos have never retreated. Not once in recorded history. They have destroyed entire civilizations. They have eaten billions of living beings. They do not feel fear. They do not feel anything except hunger. And yet they looked at you and ran away." She leaned forward. "I need to know why. The entire galaxy needs to know why." "I told you the truth," Dohyun said. "I do not know. I just walked toward them. I did not fight. I did not threaten them. I did nothing. You must have done something. The Kravos do not retreat from nothing." Before Dohyun could respond, the door opened again. An officer hurried in with a data tablet in his hands. His face was pale. "Commander, you need to see this," he said. "We found something in the old archives. Something from 300 years ago. Commander Nari took the tablet and began reading. As her eyes moved across the screen, her expression changed. First, there was confusion. Then disbelief. Then something close to horror. "This cannot be correct," she whispered. "We verified it 3 times, Commander. The records are authentic." Commander Nari looked up at Dohyun. Her silver eyes were wide. "Do you know what happened 300 years ago?" "I know some galactic history," Dohyun said. "But I am not sure what you mean." 300 years ago, the Kravos attacked a small planet in an uncharted region of space. It was a primitive world. The inhabitants had not yet developed space travel. They had simple weapons, simple technology. They should have been easy prey. Commander Nari paused. That planet was Earth. Dohyun felt a cold sensation spread through his body. "What?" "The Kravos sent a full invasion fleet to your world. 15 ships. 10,000 hunters. They expected to feed for decades." Commander Nari turned the tablet so Dohyun could see the screen. Only 2 ships returned. Less than 50 Kravos survived. Dohyun stared at the data on the screen. It showed images captured from Kravos memory records, which the Alliance had somehow obtained centuries ago. The images were blurry and distorted. But he could make out shapes. Human shapes. Fighting shapes. "Your ancestors fought them," Commander Nari continued. "Not with plasma weapons or energy shields. With rocks. With sticks. With their bare hands. The Kravos had never encountered anything like it. They are predators. They expect their prey to run. They expect their prey to hide. But humans did neither." Dohyun's mouth was dry. "We fought back. You did more than fight back. You hunted them." Commander Nari's voice was barely above a whisper. "The Kravos are apex predators. They have never been prey. But on Earth, your ancestors tracked them through forests and mountains. They set traps. They ambushed them in the darkness. They used fire and poison and weapons made from the bones of fallen Kravos." She shook her head slowly. "Your species turned the hunters into the hunted." The officer who had brought the tablet spoke up. "The records show that the Kravos who survived developed what can only be described as genetic trauma. The fear of humans was passed down through their biology. Every Kravos born since that invasion carries the memory of Earth in their cells. That is why they retreated today," Commander Nari said. "When you walked toward them, when you did not run, they recognized you. Not you specifically, but your species. They smelled human, and 300 years of genetic fear took over. They could not help themselves. They had to flee." Dohyun sat in silence for a long moment. He thought about all the times Commander Nari had called humans weak. He thought about all the aliens who had laughed at him during orientation. He thought about every species in the galaxy that believed humans were inferior because they were young. They were all wrong. Humans were not weak. They had never been weak. They had faced the most terrifying predators in the galaxy and won. Not because they had better technology. Not because they had stronger bodies, but because they refused to give up. Because they would rather die fighting than live running. "Does the Alliance know about this?" Dohyun asked. Commander Nari shook her head. "The records were classified at the highest level. Very few people had access. I suspect even most humans do not know about this history. Why would they hide it?" "Because it is terrifying," Commander Nari said honestly. "The Kravos are the most feared creatures in the galaxy. Every species knows to run from them. But humans? Humans made them afraid. If this information became public, it would change everything. Every species would have to reconsider what they think they know about your kind." Dohyun looked down at his hands. They were ordinary hands. Small and soft by galactic standards. But apparently, they came from a species that had made monsters run away screaming. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now the galaxy knows," Commander Nari said. "The security recordings from today have already been transmitted to Alliance Command. There is no hiding this anymore. Within days, every planet in the Alliance will know what happened here. They will know that a single human, unarmed and unarmored, made the Kravos retreat without firing a single shot." She stood up and looked down at him. Her expression was difficult to read. There was respect there. Yes. But also something else. Uncertainty. Maybe even a little fear. You asked me during orientation why you were here, she said. I told you that humans were soft. That you were weak and inferior. I was wrong. She paused. I apologize. It was the last thing Dohyun had expected to hear. Commander, you do not need to apologize. You did not know. That is exactly why I must apologize. I judged your species based on appearance and age. I forgot the most important rule of survival. Never underestimate what you do not understand. Commander Nari walked toward the door. Rest now. Tomorrow, everything will be different. For you. For this station. For the entire galaxy. She left, and Dohyun was alone again. He sat in the quiet room and tried to process everything he had learned. His ancestors had fought the Kravos. They had won. And because of their victory 300 years ago, he was still alive today. He thought about Earth, about all the humans who lived and worked and loved without knowing their true history, without knowing that they came from a species that made apex predators afraid. Would they believe it if they were told? Would they even care? Dohyun did not know. But he knew one thing. He was proud to be human. For the first time since arriving at Outpost 17, he was truly proud. Outside his window, the evacuation ships were beginning to return. The crisis was over. Life on the station would go back to normal. But nothing would really be normal ever again. The galaxy had been introduced to humanity. And humanity, it turned out, was far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. In the deep darkness beyond the station, the Kravos fleet continued to flee. They were moving faster than they had ever moved before. They were afraid, and in their ancient genetic memory, a warning echoed through every cell. Never return to the humans. Never hunt their kind again. For they are not prey. They are predators. Just like us, only worse. 1 week after the Kravos attack, Outpost 17 had returned to something like normal. The damaged sections were repaired. The dead were honored in a ceremony. The survivors tried to move on with their lives. But everyone knew that things had changed forever. Dohyun had become famous. His name and face were broadcast across every Alliance news channel. The human who made Kravos run. The trainee who saved a station. Humanity's true nature revealed. The headlines were everywhere. Aliens who had once ignored him now stared at him with wide eyes. Aliens who had laughed at him during orientation now looked away when he passed. Some tried to speak to him, others kept their distance. They did not know how to act around a human anymore. The training program continued. But Dohyun was no longer treated like a regular recruit. Commander Nari had given him a private room. She had assigned him special instructors. She treated him with a respect that made him uncomfortable. I am the same person I was before, Dohyun told her one morning. I have not changed. Commander Nari looked at him with her silver eyes. You have not changed, she agreed. But our understanding of you has, and that makes all the difference. Messages arrived from Earth every day. His government wanted him to return home for celebrations. Media companies wanted interviews. Military leaders wanted to meet him. Everyone wanted a piece of the human who had faced the Kravos and lived. Dohyun ignored them all. He was not interested in fame. He was not interested in being a symbol. He just wanted to complete his training and do his job. But the galaxy had other plans. 2 weeks after the attack, a delegation arrived at Outpost 17. They came from the Alliance High Council itself. 3 senior officials representing the most powerful species in the galaxy. They had traveled for days just to meet with one person, Dohyun. The meeting took place in the station's largest conference room. Commander Nari was present, along with several other high-ranking officers. But everyone knew that Dohyun was the reason they were all there. The leader of the delegation was an ancient creature named Elder Bozion. He was from a species called the Miran, who were known for their wisdom and long lives. His body was small and wrinkled, but his eyes were sharp and bright. Thank you for meeting with us, Dohyun of Earth, Elder Bozion said. His voice was soft but carried throughout the room. "We have come a long way to speak with you." Dohyun bowed his head respectfully. "I am honored, Elder. But I am not sure what I can tell you that you do not already know." "We know the facts of what happened," Elder Bosian said. "We have seen the recordings. We have read the ancient archives. But facts are not the same as understanding." He leaned forward in his chair. "Tell us, young human. What did you feel when you walked toward the Kravos? What was in your heart?" Dohyun thought carefully before answering. "I felt afraid," he admitted. "My body wanted to run. Every part of me was screaming that I was going to die, and yet you did not run." "No. Why?" Dohyun was silent for a moment. He had asked himself the same question many times over the past 2 weeks. He still did not have a complete answer. I think it was because running felt wrong," he finally said. "I looked at the officers around me. They were terrified. But they were staying to fight. They were willing to die so others could escape. How could I do less than them? How could I run when they were standing?" Elder Bosian nodded slowly. "And when the Kravos looked at you? When the largest one approached you and smelled your scent? What did you feel then?" "Oh. Ocean. Ocean. Ocean." "I felt calm," Dohyun said. "I know that sounds strange. I should have been more afraid than ever. But something inside me just settled. I looked at that creature, and I thought, if I am going to die, I will die standing up. I will die looking my enemy in the eye. I will not give them the satisfaction of seeing me cower." The room was completely silent. Every alien present was listening with absolute attention. Elder Bosian sat back in his chair. "Remarkable," he said quietly. "Absolutely remarkable." Another member of the delegation spoke up. She was a Velkari, like Commander Nari, but much older. Her blue skin had faded to a pale gray. "The Kravos have terrorized this galaxy for longer than most species have existed," she said. "They have never been stopped, never been defeated. The best we could do was pay tribute and hope they would leave us alone. And yet your ancestors, with no space technology, with no modern weapons, drove them away and scarred them so deeply that they fear you to this day." She paused. "How? How did they do it?" Dohyun shook his head. "I cannot speak for my ancestors. I do not know exactly what they did, or how they did it. But I can tell you what I believe. Please. I believe that humans are stubborn," Dohyun said. "We do not give up easily. When we face something difficult, our first instinct is not to run away, but to push harder. When someone tells us something is impossible, we want to prove them wrong. It is not always a good quality. Sometimes it gets us into trouble. But against the Kravos, maybe it was exactly what was needed." He looked around the room at all the alien faces watching him. The Kravos expected prey. They expected creatures that would flee and hide and beg for mercy. But my ancestors did none of those things. They fought back, not because they thought they could win, but because fighting was the only option they could accept. And maybe that scared the Kravos more than any weapon ever could. Elder Bosian was nodding. "The predator that becomes prey," he murmured. "The hunter that becomes the hunted." "Yes. Yes. I think I understand now." The meeting continued for several more hours. The delegation asked Dohyun many questions about humans, about Earth, about his own experiences and beliefs. He answered as honestly as he could. When the meeting finally ended, Elder Bosian approached Dohyun privately. "Young human," he said, "you have given this galaxy much to think about. For thousands of years, we have believed that strength comes from size, from technology, from numbers. You have shown us that there is another kind of strength, the strength of will, the strength of spirit, the strength to face impossible odds and refuse to yield." He placed a wrinkled hand on Dohyun's arm. "Your species has only been among the stars for a short time. But I believe great things await humanity. You have something that most species have lost, or never had. A fire in your hearts that cannot be extinguished." "Thank you, Elder," Dohyun said. But I am just one person. I do not represent all of humanity. Elder Dohyun smiled, showing small, worn teeth. Perhaps not. But every fire starts with a single spark. He turned and walked away, leaving Dohyun alone with his thoughts. That evening, Commander Nari found Dohyun on the observation deck. He was standing at the window, looking out at the stars. The delegation was impressed, she said, standing beside him. Elder Dohyun has not been impressed by anything in over 200 years. Dohyun did not respond. He just kept looking at the stars. What are you thinking about? Commander Nari asked. Home, he said. Earth. I am thinking about all the people there who do not know any of this. They go about their lives, working and loving and raising families, without any idea that they come from a species that made monsters afraid. Will you tell them? When you return. Dohyun shook his head. I do not think I need to. Humans do not need to know their history to be who they are. That fire Elder Dohyun talked about, it burns in all of us. Whether we know it or not, it has always been there. It always will be. Commander Nari was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I laughed at you. That first day, I called you soft and weak. I said humans should not have come to this station. I remember. I was a fool. She turned to face him. You saved my life. You saved everyone on this station. And you did it without weapons or armor or training. You did it just by being human. She bowed her head, a gesture of deep respect in Velkari culture. I will never underestimate your kind again. Neither will anyone else who hears this story. Dohyun finally turned away from the window. He looked at Commander Nari, at her blue skin and silver eyes, at the face of someone who had once dismissed him and now respected him. That is all I ever wanted, he said. Not fame, not glory, just respect. Just a chance to show that humans belong out here, among the stars, with everyone else. Commander Nari straightened. You have done more than that, Trainee. You have changed everything. The galaxy will never look at humanity the same way again. She walked away, leaving Dohyun alone on the observation deck. He turned back to the window and looked out at the endless darkness and the billions of stars that filled it. Somewhere out there, the Kravos were still running. Somewhere out there, aliens were hearing his story for the first time and wondering what other secrets humanity held. And somewhere out there, on a small blue planet called Earth, 7 billion humans lived their lives without knowing that they came from a species that made the galaxy's greatest predators flee in terror. Dohyun smiled. Maybe one day he would go home and tell them. Maybe one day humans would learn their true history. But for now, it was enough to know the truth himself. Humans were not prey. They never had been. And now, finally, the galaxy knew it too.